everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And in today's range report, from what you can see on the workbench, we are going to be shooting, reviewing, and talking about a high-end, top-tier AR-15 platform rifle from LWRC, or Land Warfare Resources Corporation. Many people consider this company to be on par with Knight's Armament and LMT. This rifle is the M6 IC-A5, and I think it's important that we break that name down. M6 essentially is their version of the M4. It has parts compatibility with that rifle system, but their proprietary lowers do have ambidextrous controls. IC stands for individual carbine, and it deals more with the rail platform that you see on this upper. It was spawned from a military trials program, and LWRC had an entry into that program, and unfortunately no contracts were given out, but LWRC thought this was such an innovative platform that they included it on many of their models. And A5 deals with the upper receiver, and more specifically the short stroke gas piston system with an adjustable gas block. So this is an SBR. It has a 12.7-inch barrel. This gun started life as a pistol, and the owner of this gun filled out the paperwork so he could add the B5 industry stock, and he also included a Huxworks Flow 556K suppressor for this review. So this is going to be a really cool gun to shoot. The only other LWRC firearm that I have reviewed in the past was the SPR, but I've been looking forward to reviewing the A5 because everybody says this is the best gas piston system, especially if you're going to run the gun unsuppressed and suppressed. It's very easy to use and it's very reliable. So this should be a fun one. But before we take this gun to the range and talk about all of its specs, as always, I have to thank the people that help make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this rifle and this suppressor, who not only donated his time, but also filled out the paperwork allowing me to borrow it to create this content. He's a local fan and subscriber named D, and he has an amazing collection. So thank you again, D, for all you do for the Texas Gun Vault community. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters, because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I could not create this content without them. And if you want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, there's a link in the description below, and you'll get to see all of these videos early. And as always, I want to thank my channel's primary sponsor, who provides all of the ammunition for these range reports and makes them financially feasible for me, my good friend Mark from Brownworks. And you guys know from watching my channel, I am a huge fan of Brownworks. Mark over there is the owner. He's an artist and a craftsman, and he makes amazing grips for guns like 1911s, Beretta 92, CZ75s, and Browning high powers. His grips can come with custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures. He can finish these grips in a wide variety of colors, make his own laminate woods, and even apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin, making these grips unique and one of a kind. Pretty much anything you can imagine, he can create. He also has his own line of pistol stands, so you need to check those out as well. I'm going to put a link to his website in the comment section below, as well as a coupon code for 10% off your first order, and I'm going to ask you to go over there and check out everything he has to offer. So when you place your first order of a set of Brownworks custom grips, please tell Mark the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this rifle. I want to go over all of its specs and talk about the couple of things that the owner of this rifle has changed out. So let me go ahead and adjust the camera, and let's get some close-up looks at this awesome rifle. So let's take a closer look at this awesome-looking LWRC M6 IC-A5. Once again, this particular gun started life as a pistol, but the owner filled out the paperwork so he could put on this B5 Industries stock, making it a short-barreled rifle. As such, we have a 12.7-inch barrel that is cold hammer forged of 41V45 steel. It has the spiral fluting to reduce weight, but also keep the barrel's rigidity. Not 100% sure if you can see it underneath that handguard. The barrel twist rate is 1 in 7, At the front, we have a thread pitch of 1/2 by 28, so you can put on most of your standard flash hiders and muzzle brakes. It does have the LWRC gas piston system, and that's what the A5 in the model designation is really talking about, with the adjustable gas block that is really easy to get to with this cutout in the top rail. It is finished in an OD Cerakote. It uses the LWRC modular rail system, and that's what I was talking about when it came to the IC in the model designation. Some of the parts of this rail are proprietary. You can see we do have some screw holes in the side, and you can buy rail panels and other accessories for this rail from LWRC. M6, once again, means it is their M4 style rifle. We have a lot of ambidextrous controls. Internally, this has a nickel boron coated bolt carrier group and bolt. The barrel itself is nitrocarburized, and this gun does have a couple of aftermarket parts that I do want to talk about. I already mentioned first and foremost the B5 Industry stock, which does not come with this gun when you get it, but he also changed out the trigger to a Geissele Super Semi-Automatic Enhanced, which honestly is one of the best upgrades you can do to any gun. Geissele just makes some of the best stuff. But even though this is not the stock trigger, and this is a common upgrade that most people are going to do, we're still going to test it. So I'm going to get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and we're going to see how well this Geissele trigger pulls before taking it to the range. And so even though this is not the stock trigger in this LWRC, this is one of the most common upgrades people do to them. I'm not saying the LWRC triggers are bad, but everyone knows Geissele's are probably the best. And most people that buy high-end ARs, if they don't have Geissele triggers in them, often install them. So that's why I do want to test this in case you have a gun like this and this is an upgrade you're looking to do. Let's start by dropping the magazine, of course, visually inspecting that it is empty, and then we will turn the gun over and make sure that the chamber is empty, and it looks like we are clear. So let's start off by looking at the initial take-up and the reset. Like all Geissele triggers, it is short and light to a definitive wall, and it breaks like a glass rod. Very, very light. And here is our reset. That feels great. Just a little bit of take up back to that wall, and that trigger breaks very predictably and very light. That is just one great feeling trigger. So let me go ahead and get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge. Let me clear any averages it may have, and let's test this trigger out. I'm fairly certain it's going to be pretty darn light. For our first pull, we have 2 pounds, 11.7 ounces. £2, 12.9 ounces. £2, 10.8 ounces. £2, 11.8 ounces. And finally we have £2, 11.4 ounces, which gives us an average of £2, 11.7 ounces. So that is a pretty darn light trigger for a defensive carbine. Personally, I typically like them to be between 3 and 3.5 pounds, but this is just below it. It might be a little bit too light for my tastes, but it still should be very good. So I'm hoping that's going to translate into an awesome shooting experience. So the next thing I want to do is readjust the camera and talk about all the things I like about this rifle before I take it to the range. And as always, before going to the range with any firearm I have into the channel for review, I like to share with you my thoughts on the things that I like and don't like about it, and I always want to start with the positive first. And the first thing I love about this rifle is that it is an LWRC, and they are a military contractor. I'm a collector more than anything, and I love collecting tactical firearms. So a gun made from a military contractor, I think, is just really, really cool. They also make top-tier firearms. The next thing I like about this gun is the overall aesthetics. It doesn't look goofy. Sometimes companies will make their guns look stupid, in my opinion. They give them goofy names. They do things to them to make them look tacti-cool. But being a military contractor, this gun looks cool because it's practical, it's utilitarian, and I do like that about it. I'm also a big fan of the M6 ambi controls, and I do like the gas piston system. And in general, when it comes to AR rifles, I do prefer DI guns more than piston guns, but they say this is one of the most reliable ones out there. I really like that adjustable gas block, and it is self-regulating. Now, there are a couple things about this gun that I don't like. Because this is a piston system gun, the weight is a little bit heavier than a DI gun. I honestly believe that Eugene Stoner got it right when he invented the M16, a lightweight rifle. And over time, we've gotten away from that. And if you ever get the chance to shoot an M16A1, either in semi or fully automatic, you'll know what I mean. It is really light, and honestly, I can see how that was a game changer back in the 1960s. And we've just gotten away from really light ARs. The last thing about this gun I don't like is the interface with the rail. I showed you earlier we have these little screw holes on the side, and those are proprietary. Typically, you have to buy the rail sections from LWRC. There might be other companies out there that make accessories for this rail system, but I don't see them very often. I'm not really a huge fan of guns that have a lot of proprietary parts. So that's the things that I like and don't like about this gun. So now it's time to get it to the range. And the first thing I want to do is just make sure it functions. So we're just going to set up the target at 10 yards. We're going to shoot this gun unsuppressed and suppressed, and I am going to adjust the gas block. Once again, just checking it for reliability, see how it shoots, see what the recoil impulse is like, and see if it's accurate. So let's go to the range and have some fun with this LWRC. And as expected, the gun ran great in both settings, suppressed and unsuppressed. The recoil is actually very, very soft. Sometimes I think these piston guns have a little bit more recoil than the DI guns, but this one seems to be softer, and it's smooth and solid. I also noticed that the gun is a little bit front heavy with the suppressor. I mentioned before, the piston system adds a little bit of weight to the front, and of course if you run it suppressed, it adds more weight to the front. And this is a heavier suppressor for its size, being made out of stainless steel. The gun isn't too heavy where it's uncomfortable, but you notice the balance, and you might want to try to offset that with your optics as well. So now the next test I want to do is double the distance of this target and just make sure the gun continues to be accurate, that it shoots well, and see if there's anything else about it that I discover that I like or don't like, and I'll report back to you. But because this suppressor is so nice, all of the rest of the tests are going to be suppressed. So let's go back to the range and just put some more rounds through this cool rifle. And this is turning out to be everything I was expecting it to be. It's just a solid rifle. It's a solid platform. I'm also a big fan of the barrel length. I have come to appreciate barrels between 11.5 inches and 12.5 inches. Yeah, this is 12.7, just a little bit longer than that, but I think this is the optimal barrel length for any SBR. Sometimes people want to go as short as possible, but you lose so much when it comes to the ballistics, and they're really loud. This is the perfect balance. It's still very short. It's the perfect length for a defensive carbine, especially for home defense, but it's not so short that it's going to be loud and tear up your suppressors, but it's also not so long that it's cumbersome. I'm a big fan of this barrel length. So now I want to test this gun's accuracy. So we're going to set out the target at 25 yards. And yes, I know this gun can go out way further than that, but I am reviewing this as a defensive carbine. So if I get a weird point of impact shift with some of the rounds, you can extrapolate that information out to further distances. But at 25 yards, I'm expecting a pretty darn tight group. So let's go back to the range and see how this rifle shoots from the bench. And for using practice range bulk ammunition, I think that's a pretty darn good group. I care more about the group size than its accuracy towards the center of the target. I would just need to adjust this EOTech. Other reviewers have claimed that with this gun, they get about 1.5 to 2 MOA accuracy at 100 yards. And I think those are true statements. This is not a gun designed to be a DMR, but its accuracy is better than a standard mil-spec AR-15. Now, the next test I want to do is the quick magazine change test. And one thing I have noticed after handling it here on the workbench is the magazines simply fly out of this gun when you depress the magazine release. And I appreciate that. Sometimes these lowers are milled out in a way where you get too much friction between the magazine and the mag well and causes them to stick a little bit, and that can slow you down. I want these magazines to get out of this gun as fast as possible, and that's what we seem to have here on the workbench. So hopefully I'll be able to change this magazine out quickly. Plus we have these awesome ambi controls, so if you're a left-handed shooter, you have other options besides using the standard magazine release. So let's go back to the range. Let's see how fast I can shoot this in a small burst and then change the magazine out and get the gun back in action. And I can definitely change this magazine out quickly, and I can shoot this gun really fast. And that's because this Geisley trigger is so awesome. Now, this is also something I noticed when it comes to that group on the target. This gun has virtually no recoil, no muzzle rise at all. And that's where the heavier weight of the gun is an advantage. This gun is so easy to control when you're shooting it fast. And so that is a lot of fun to do that type of shooting at the range. Now, the last test I want to do is not really a test. It's just me wanting to shoot the gun fast now that I know that I can pull this trigger so quickly. So it's just the mag dump test. So let's go to the range and let's see how fast I can empty a magazine in this awesome LWRC. And wow, can I shoot this gun fast and keep the rounds on target? But there's something beyond that I'm more impressed with, is how much fun this gun is to shoot. And that's a thing that some reviewers don't talk about. But let me tell you, if a gun is fun, you're going to want to train with it. You're going to want to take it to the range, and you're going to want to enjoy it. And that's honestly one of the most important things when it comes to any firearm. This gun just checks that box. It's reliable, it's accurate, but it's fun. So what are my final thoughts on the LWRC M6 IC-A5? Well, this is obviously a top-tier AR made by one of the best mil-spec companies out there like LMT or Knights Armament. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of piston ARs, this one is light recoiling and seems to be very reliable. I wasn't experiencing any gas through the ejection port. The gun is very accurate for a defensive carbine, and being a 12.7-inch barrel, this is the perfect gun to SBR. This thing is awesome. I could see it being used as a home defense weapon or even a truck gun. I really see this gun having lots of applications and filling in the gaps between a full-length rifle and the shortest possible SBR you can get. Honestly, it's a very well-balanced gun. The only thing about it that maybe I'm not the biggest fan of, once again, is the proprietary rail and maybe its weight. It's not too heavy, but you notice it when you shoot it, especially if you're used to DI guns. But it's not really a deal breaker. So on my star system, how would I rate the LWRC M6 IC-A5 12.7-inch barreled SBR? Well, I'm going to give this 4.75 stars out of 5. Almost a perfect review. This thing is pretty darn awesome. If it didn't have that proprietary rail and it was just a little bit lighter, it'd probably be 5 out of 5 stars. But those are very, very small gripes, and as I mentioned, are not deal breakers. So tell me in the comments section below, what do you think of LWRC? Have you ever fired any of their guns? And do your experiences with them mirror mine? So, as always, thanks for watching.